Hello students, today we are going to be talking about literature circles, what they are, and how we're going to do them in this class. So first we're going to start by looking at this PowerPoint. If I can figure out how to present it. Okay, here are our literature circle presentation. What is a literature circle? A literature circle is when students get together to discuss a text. A literature circle allows students to engage in critical thinking and reflect on what they read. And literature circles look different every time. Here's a list of what literature circles are and what they are not. They are student-centered reading responses, part of a balanced literary program, groups formed by book choice, structured for student independence, responsibility, and ownership, guided primarily by student insights and questions, and intended as a context in which to apply reading and writing skills. And as I said, they are flexible and fluid, and so they never look the same twice. We're not going to look at what they are not, because we don't really need to know that. Next, we're going to talk about the roles that you will have within your literature circles. So the first one's our discussion director. So the discussion director's job is to keep the group focused when you're meeting for your literature circles, plan questions beforehand to ask during literature circles, and track assignment completion of group members. Another role is the connector. The connector makes connections to text when reading. They share connections during the literature circles, and they encourage other members to share connections. Our next two roles are Word Wizard, which focuses on vocabulary, interesting words, and figurative language while reading. They then research the meaning of these words and interesting words. They share their findings in literature circles, and they help others find the meanings of words in literature circles. The final role is Super Summarizer/Secretary. The Super Summarizer is going to create a short summary after assigned readings, and then share that summary with the literature circle during group time. They are also going to keep a list of points discussed during literature circles. Expectations. We're going to add the PowerPoint really quick and go to our expectations. This says guidelines, but it means the same thing. So this classroom's guidelines include listening to each other, keeping your eyes and ears on the speaker, staying on task, sharing your opinions and listening to others' opinions, being prepared, taking turns, doing your fair share of work, which are all very good expectations for going into one of these literature circles, but we're going to have a few that are specific to our classroom. Let me just go back into the PowerPoint really quickly. Our classroom expectations are to be respectful to each other when sharing, even if you don't agree with somebody's opinion or their claim of the text, to be prepared, which means doing your assignment before coming to literature circles, as well as being prepared for your task, which means you need to know your role. So which 4 of the roles you have that week, you need to know and be prepared, and you need to participate in order to get full points and in order to get the most out of your literature circle and to help your group. Next, we're going to talk about the process of literature circles, which we're going to go look at this classroom's process because ours is going to be very similar. Okay, so it says for the first literature circle meeting, right here, that we're going to decide how much of the text to read and which role each of you will fill during the next meeting. I've done that for you. So your first meeting is going to be a little bit different. Your first meeting is technically this video and then me talking to you before this video. So you all know which text you're reading already. We've decided that. And how much you're reading. And your role. Your role is assigned for each, as you will get a turn with each of the 4 roles. And so now you're on this part of the process. You need to read your text and prepare for literature circle meetings. So after this, every literature meeting, you will use your notes to guide the group's discussion according to your role, which means the director will direct the group and ask questions. The connector will tell their connections and all of their different and ask for other people's connections. Your Word Wizard will share the vocabulary that people might have had trouble with and help other people with words they might have struggled on. And your Summarizer will share their summary of the text they read as well as keep the key points of your group meeting so we can look back and see what you did. It says be open and make sure that everyone has a chance to participate. Remember that personal stories that connect to the reading and open-ended questions about the text are welcome, but we just need to make sure that these personal stories relate to the text and are kept brief enough that it doesn't interfere with the meeting. Decide how much of the text you will read and rotate the roles that you will fill during the next meeting. We've already decided how much to read. We can change that if need be, but we shouldn't need to. And your role will be, again, given by me, or we can talk about as a class choosing our next roles, but everyone needs to have a chance to fill each of the 4 roles. And then you'll need to read your text again. And then it says when books are finished, readers share with their classmates, and then new groups form around new reading choices. This is the only literature circle we're doing right now. We'll do another towards the end of the year. But we will probably have a chance to share what went well in our literature circles and what we could have changed. Next, we're going to look at your job. So you have in your role and as a student. So your job in your role, so a discussion director, a connector, a word wizard, or a super summarizer / secretary. Your job in that is to attend all literature circle meetings. We have 4 meetings of our literature circles, and then you will need to be prepared to complete your assigned roles tasks. So that means having completed your prep work before the meeting. So having words to discuss, having connections, as the director having questions to ask, and as a summarizer having your summary done. And then you also have your job as a student, which includes doing your reading, doing all assignments, so your job work beforehand, and discussing with your group members during literature circles. So participating in that literature circle is part of your job as a student, and in your role, as your role has parts that are only able to be done in group. Your first literature circle meeting is Wednesday, August 21st, so it's very soon. So you're going to do your 2 assigned readings because of the 2 chunks, because we chunk them out by which night you need to read them. So it'll be the first 2 chunks that you'll read for that meeting. So these are just your standards and objectives, which your global standard is students will communicate their ideas effectively with diverse audiences. You've got a couple national goals that have to do with reading. Your objectives are that students will effectively communicate with peers, and students will engage with the text by making connections, working on vocabulary, and summarizing the text. All right, now that we've gone through the PowerPoint, we're going to look at a few of my sources and things that we'll be looking at throughout. So this is the same one that had the guidelines. Ooh, is it not going to work? We'll exit out of this one. Okay, so then we have this literature circle guide, which is what we're kind of basing our stuff off. I'm not putting you guys a packet. I will project the sheets when we need it, and you can copy them down because we're just using the format for some of these. So we're not going to do this introduction. We already know that sort of thing. We already have our literature reading plan. We don't need that part. What we will be using is, this sheet is the discussion director sheet, and so you see that it has the date of meeting and then some questions. So for that, the discussion director will need to use their notebook paper. They will need to write their role at the top, their meeting, what day the meeting is, their text, and then list at least 5 questions that they're going to ask during the discussion. The word wizard is going to do the same thing. They're going to list up their role as the word wizard. They're going to put their name. They're going to put their book. And they're going to make a column that has their word or phrase or figurative language or interesting word, and then the meaning of it in another column. The connector is going to do the same thing. Write that they're the connector, write their name, write the book, and then they're going to have 2 columns. What happened in the book and the connection you made because of it. So if somebody in the book is fighting with their sibling, you can make a connection to real life that you fight with your sibling and the time that it happened. And you'll put those in 2 separate columns so that we know which is which, and you'll label the columns. The super summarizer. Your summary is just going to be 1 to 2 paragraphs with the heading Super Summarizer, the book, and your name, and then a paragraph, and then it'll look more like this format. And so this top half says summarize what you read, and the bottom says summarize what you discussed. Your format will look like that. And then at the end, every group will turn in group notes, and it'll have names of everyone at the top, group notes for which book, and then you'll put down which sections you read, the things you discussed about, and your tasks, so you'll put your roles for each meeting. And so that's about it for your literature circles. If you have any questions, I'm always around for you to ask, as usual. And we'll have a couple of classes before then, so we can discuss if you have more questions about your role or about your assignments or what you're